Hello everyone. In this video I'm going to be going through our 7.4 textbook questions. So those are these right here. So the first one, number 3, it says the sum of two numbers is 11. Their product is negative 152. What are the numbers? So I'm going to start off, I'm going to say let x and y be the numbers. Okay, so I know that their sum, that means to add. So if I take x plus y, I add them up, I got to get 11. So there's one thing. And then I also know their product, that's when I multiply, is negative 152. So x times y is negative 152. And then I'm going to modify this first one. I want to get it to be either x equals or y equals, so I'm going to make it y equals. To do that, got to get rid of the x here. Got to do that on both sides, so the x's cancel, and then I just have y equals 11 minus x. Okay, and then what I do with that is I take that and I plug it in down where I have y here. So it's now going to become x times 11 minus x equals negative 152. Okay, and then I can start to distribute this into my brackets. So that's going to give me 11x minus x squared equals negative 152. And then I'm going to move everything on to the same side. So we'll move this over here and that over to the other side as well. When they move, the signs are going to change. So I'm going to have 0 over here. X squared moves over. It's now positive x squared. 11x moves over. It's now negative 11x. And then we got minus 152. Okay, so now we got a quadratic equation. And to solve this, we're going to try to factor it. So we want to find a product of negative 152 and a sum of negative 11. Okay, so you can try to think about those numbers. And those two numbers are going to be negative 19 and 8. Okay, and the way to find these, what I would do is I would go into my calculator and I would start with negative 152, and then I would just start dividing by different things. So maybe start dividing by like a 2. Okay, those two terms, 2 and negative 76, that doesn't add up to negative 11, so then you would go to the next one. Try dividing by 3, got a decimal so it doesn't work. Divide by 4, got a whole number here, but it's not going to add up to negative 11, and just keep working your way up until you find the two terms that actually work. Now what I do, I'm going to factor that or break that apart, so I got 0 equals x minus 19 and x plus 8. And then I just take each of those, set them equal to 0, so x minus 19 equals 0 and x plus 8 equals 0. The left one I'm going to add 19 to both sides, so those will cancel, and on this side we're just going to get 19. So I got 19 with that one, and then with the other one I'm going to minus 8, so my 8's are gone and I just get x equals negative 8. Okay, and then what I have to do is I have to take those values that I just got and plug those back in to what we had for y. So this y, it's going to be either 11 minus 19, or it could be 11 minus negative 8. Okay, and those are just coming from, again, my two answers I got down here. So in the first one, 11 minus 19 gives me negative 8. And then in the bottom one, these two negatives be a plus, so we get 19. So now notice the numbers I got, negative 8 and 19. Those pair with these, okay, but they give me the same solution. This one says 19, and then it gave out negative 8. This one said negative 8, and then it spit out the other answer, 19. So they give me the same two answers. My answer is negative 8 and 19. Okay, moving on to our next question. Okay, number 5 here says, Duncan dives with a junior swim club in a dive off a 7.5 meter platform. He reaches a max height of 7.94 meters, and that took him about 0.3 seconds. How long does it take him to reach the water? So what I'm going to do is I'm first going to draw kind of a graph to get a grasp of what's going on in this situation. So time is going to be on my horizontal axis, and then my height is going to be on my vertical axis, and the height was in meters. Okay, so on top of this now I'm just going to draw kind of a picture to get the idea of what's going on. So that's going to be like our diving board. We're going to be up that high, and he's going to jump off that diving board, go in the air, and then come down to the ground. Okay, so I can see that this is a parabola shape if it were to keep going both ways. Okay, but I'm really only interested about the portion where he jumps off and then he's in the air and then he comes down and he hits the pool right here. So let's take the information we had in the question and let's put it onto our graph. So it said he dived off a 7.5 meter platform. So that means that this is 7.5 meters up in the air. So that point right there. And it said he reached a maximum height of 7.94 meters. So his max height is right there. So that's going to be at 7.94. So he went up just a little bit from where he began at. And that occurred 0.3 seconds after he jumped. So this would be 0. After 0.30 seconds, that's when he arrived and he got to that max height. Okay, so that point, it's at 0.30. That's the x, or the independent variable, and then the height was 7.94. Okay, so what we want to find is how long does it take him to reach the water. So I want to figure out what that time is right there at the very end. Okay, now the only information I'm given really that's going to be useful is this vertex. So I'm going to start off with vertex form and try to get a function for this. So that's y equals a times x minus h squared plus k. And then we're going to fill it in. This is h, and that's k. So we got x minus 0.30 plus 7.94. Okay, and then the only thing we're missing is we need to fill in this a value, because once I have this function, I'm going to be able to find any point on this parabola. Okay, so let's find the a value, and to do that, I need some other point on the graph. It can't be this one because we've already used it, and it can't be using this one because we don't know what that is, but I know at time 0 it was up 7.5 meters. Okay, so we're going to use the point 0 and 7.5. And this is x, that is y. So y changes to 7.5. A we don't know. X is 0. And then just finish writing everything else out. Okay, and then I'm going to start to simplify. So we want to get this a by itself. I'm going to simplify inside the brackets here and then square it. So 0 minus 0.3 is just negative 0.3, and then we're going to square that, and we get 0.09. So I got 0.09 times that a, so that's going to be 0.09a plus that 7.94. Okay, then let's get rid of that 7.94. So subtract 7.94 from both sides. They'll cancel over here. Okay, and then I'm left with negative 0.44. And that equals 0.09a. And then I'm just going to pull that all the way up over to this section here. Okay, so divide both sides by that 0.09 to get those to cancel. Got to do it on the other side. And then I'm going to get A is equal to negative 4.888, and the 8's just keep repeating. Okay, so now I know my function. My function is going to be what we had right over here, but now I know the A value, so I'm going to replace it with this A value. Okay, so I wrote in that A value, so that went right here. Now I used the fraction that we had before, just so that when I put this into my calculator, I don't have to try to put in a bunch of 8's, or I don't have to round this. If I put in the fraction, it's going to be more accurate. Okay, so let's type this into our calculator, and then we're going to be able to graph it. And what we're going to do is we are going to find this height when this is at a height of 0, or find that x-intercept, and we'll do that using our calculator. Okay, so get out our calculator, then we're going to go to y equals, and then just start to type in this. Okay, and now that I have that typed in, I can click graph. So looking at my graph, I can see he comes down and then hits the pool right there, just like on our original graph, comes down, hits the pool. Now we want to find where it's at a height of 0, so we're going to click second, trace, and there's option number 2, height is 0. So click number 2, and then we're going to scroll over to our point where it crosses, and we need to be on the left bound of it, so left side. So go to the left, and we can click enter, and then we need the right bound, so go over to the right side. Again, we got to be to the right, and we'll click enter, and then it's going to search in between those 2 points. And then I just got to click enter for it to guess. So I can see at a height of 0, it was at 1.574 seconds. So let's write that down. Okay, so it took approximately about 1.5 seconds for him to reach the water. Now note in this question, our x was time, okay, and I wrote that right here, okay, but we used x throughout, and we used y throughout instead of h for height or t for time. Okay, you can still do it like this, you just got to know that the x is representing the time, and then the y is representing the height. Okay, on to our next question. So number 7, it says Alexis sells chocolate mouse torts for $25. At this price, she can sell about 200 of these per week. She wants to increase her earnings though. From her research, she knows that she will sell 5 fewer of these per week for each dollar increase. Okay, so that would make sense. If you increase the price, right, you're gonna sell fewer of these. So part A, what function EX, so it wants us to use EX, can be used to model Alexis's earnings. So the E stands for earnings. If X represents the price increase in dollars. Okay, so we got E of X, that's her earnings. It's always going to be the price times by the amount. Okay, so in this case, she started off, it was $25 and it was 200. That was the amount. Okay, but then she adjusted it. She took $25 and she was going to sell it for a dollar more, dollar increase. So plus a dollar, and we're going to do that X amount of times. It said right here, X represents the price increase, so we're doing it X amount of times, increasing it. Throw that in brackets, and we're multiplying by 200 of these, but we're going to sell 5 fewer. So minus 5, and that's going to happen X times, so got to put the X. So there's our expression in factored form. Factored because we have 2 separate factors. The question doesn't say what form it wanted it in, but the answer in our textbook doesn't have it in this form. So what we got to do is we got to just FOIL this all out and get it into standard form. So I'm going to have 25 times 200. That's going to give me 5,000. Then we got 25 times that negative 5x. That's going to give me negative 125x. We got x times 200. That's 200x. And then last, x times negative 5x. That's negative 5x squared. Okay, and then we want to group these two x terms together, and I'm also going to write the x squared term at the front. So I'm going to put in negative 5x squared at the front. When I put these two terms together here, I'm going to get positive 75x. And then we got the plus 5,000. Okay, so that's our answer for part A. For part B, it asks, what higher price would let Alexis earn the same amount of money she earns now? Okay, so right now it said she earned $25 for each of these chocolates, and she sold 200 of these in the week. So if I take 25 by 200, that's going to tell me how much she has made. Okay, and that gave me $5,000. So we want to find another point on the curve that also gives me 5,000. So let's graph this into our calculator, and we want to get a height of 5,000. So go into our calculator and go to y equals, and then we'll clear the last function that we had, and then we're going to put in this one that we just had right here. Okay, and then we'll graph that and see what we get. So when it went to graph, I did not get any picture, okay, because this is way too high. It's way up at 5,000. That's where the y-intercept is. So what we need to do, we need to get a better picture. So let's go zoom fit. That's going to be zoom 0, or you can just scroll down and find it. I know for me it's zoom 0. Okay, so now I can see it a little better. I'm going to zoom out just so I can get a little bit better of a picture. Okay, and now we want to find where it's at a height of 5,000. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to make a second function where the height is at 5,000. So we'll put in when y is 5,000, because y was like our e, our earnings. So our earnings is 5,000. We'll click graph. And I get 2 points where I get to make 5,000. Anything above that, I'm going to make more than $5,000. So one of these will be the one we already know. It'll be this, and then one of them will be the other one. Okay, so we got to find the intersection. So let's go second trace, find intersect. So that's number 5. Okay, and we'll find this first one. Just click enter, enter, enter. Okay, so at 0 of these price increases, we made $5,000, right? That was the original. At $25, 200 of them, we made 5 grand. Okay, now let's find this new one. So we'll click second, trace, intersect, number 5. But now we got to move closer to that other point. Okay, so I'll move over, click enter, enter, enter. Okay, and now I got x is 15. Okay, so let's write that down. Okay, so we got x is equal to 15. Now, the question didn't ask what is x going to be. It said what higher price would let Alexis earn the same amount of money. So the price, we had that written up here. The price is 25 plus 1 times x. Okay, so price is equal to 25 plus 1 times x. And x we just got is 15. So let's put in a 15. Okay, and then that's going to give us 25 plus just 15, and then adding those together, we're going to get 40. I got to move my calculator out of the way. So again, that was just $40 for the price. Okay, and then lastly, we got part C. Part C said, what should Alexis charge to earn the max amount of money? So again, we're going to pull out our calculator and we just want to find the maximum point. So that's right there. So go second, trace to max, number 4. Okay, and then scroll up to the max. And first we got to do left bound, so we got to go to the left side of it. Enter, and then it asks for the right bound, so we got to go right side, enter, and then guess. Okay, so that happens at 7.5 and 5,281. So let's write that down. So x is 7.5 approximately, and then the y was 5,281.25. Okay, so we got the vertex point. Now what we wanted to find was how much Alexis should charge, okay? And her price, we had said it was $25 plus 1 times whatever x is. We had written that right up here. Okay, and now x is 7.5. So let's write that out. So our price, it was $25 plus 1 times x, and x is 7.5. Okay, and then when we multiply that, it's just going to give us 7.5. So I got 7.5 plus 25. That's going to give me $32.50. Okay, so there are our answers for that question. Okay, moving on to the last one. Here it says 2 consecutive integers are squared, and then the sum of these squares is 365. So we're going to say let x and y be integers. Okay, and the first piece of information is that they are consecutive. So consecutive means, like if you had 5, the next consecutive number is 6. If you had 8, next consecutive is 9. So if I have x, okay, that'll be like my first number. My y, I know it's got to be, just like these ones, it was 1 more. Okay, so to get to the next one, I had to add 1 more. So this is going to be equal to whatever x was, but it's 1 more than that. Okay, the next piece of information, the sum of these squares is going to be 365. So I'm going to square them up and then I'm going to add them, and I should get 365. So when I take x and I square it, I just get x squared, and then I'm going to sum up the next one, so x plus 1 squared. That's going to equal, when I add them, 365. Okay, so now I just got to simplify and then solve this equation. So x squared just gives me x squared. This next one, I got x plus 1 squared, which is x plus 1 times x plus 1. Okay, and then I'm going to have to FOIL out this. And when I do that, that's going to give me x squared from that one. Then I'm going to have 1 times x, that's 1x. Another 1 times x, that's another 1x. And then 1 times 1, that's just 1. Okay, and then these two x squareds I'll put together, and these two x's I'll put together. Okay, I want to get this 365 on the other side. I want all my terms on one side, so I'm going to subtract 365, subtract 365. Those cancel. And then I just got 2x squared plus 2x minus 364. Okay, and now with this, what I'm going to try to do is factor this, but I can see I can divide all the terms by 2, so I'm going to do that first. Okay, even this term over here, this has to be divided by 2 as well. So we're going to get some canceling. These are going to cancel, these are going to cancel, and then we're going to have 364 divided by 2. That'll give us 182. So I got x squared plus x minus 182. That equals 0. Okay, and then to solve this, what we're going to need to do is we're going to need to factor that. So I got to try to think up of some numbers that have a product of negative 182, and they sum to give me this middle term, which is just a 1. Okay, so again, I would try to use my calculator to do this. I would take 182 and then divide by 2, divide by 3, divide by 4 until eventually you find the two numbers. And the two numbers that are going to work are going to be a 13, and that's negative, and a 14. Okay, so let's break it down. I got x minus 13 and x plus 14. And then we take each of those and we set them equal to 0. So x minus 13 equals 0, and x plus 14 equals 0. Okay, and then solve those. So add 13 onto both sides for this one. 13's cancel, so x equals 13. And the right one got a minus 14 from both sides. So 14's cancel, and we get x equals negative 14. Okay, so I figured out what the x's are. Now I got to figure out what the corresponding y's are for each of these. So if x is equal to 13, the y is going to equal, we had written that up top, it's right here. So y is equal to x plus 1. So let's write that out. Y is equal to x plus 1. And I know x is just 13. So y is going to be equal to 13 plus 1, and I get 14. So my two answers, or my two numbers for this, are 13 and 14. Okay, from my second answer, if x was equal to this negative 14, y is going to be, again, it's x plus 1, and then x is negative 14. So I get negative 13 for that one. And then my two answers are negative 14 and negative 13. Now questions like this, you can always put back into your calculator and check. So they had to be consecutive. 13, 14, those are consecutive. Negative 13, negative 14, those are one right after the other. They're consecutive. But I got to check what the other statement was, and that was that the sum of their squares is 365. So I'm going to put into my calculator, I'm going to add up their squares and see what I get. Okay, so I'm going to have 13 squared plus 14 squared. So the sum of their squares, I get 365, which is what I wanted. And then I'm going to do my other one. So bracket, negative 14, close bracket squared, plus negative 13 in brackets, and then square that one also, and I get 365. So both of them work. Just be really careful with this one. Make sure you got brackets around your numbers. Okay, so those are our two answers.